all I want to do is make this cool stuff. And I was basically going to release this anyway, right? It was like, okay, I'm going to look at publishers and do all this stuff and try to do all, like, I was still going to try to do all these things, but I found this to be a much more interesting and direct way to do it and allow me to earn the income for my art as opposed to someone else taking all of it, which would have happened in the more traditional models that were available to us. So like, I think one of the things that have been like off-putting to some people is like they seem to be getting mad that artists are making money with their work, but it's like someone else was making that money before and no one was getting mad. But now that the artist is getting all that money instead of all these other people that weren't doing anything, and people are getting mad, but it's just like, this is what was happening. You should be mad at what was happening before.
I'm delighted to welcome absolute industry legend Ben Mauro to the Learn Squared podcast for today's episode. Ben's career is simply phenomenal, and one that is a benchmark to many of us. Having worked for the biggest clients on the biggest projects in both movies, games, and beyond, Ben shows no signs of slowing down, as he can now be seen developing Huxley, which is his own IP. An IP which, if you ask me, will prove to be one of the beacons within our industry in regards to how artists can earn and express their creativity away from the more traditional avenues available to us. In this episode, enjoy a conversation about never giving up, moving forward, art, career development, creative independence, how NFTs are impacting creatives, and just a ton of delicious wisdom and insights from Ben, and then some. Buckle up, don't forget to subscribe, and let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Learn Squared podcast, and I'm super pumped to have today's guest, the legendary Ben Mauro. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Quite a lot of things I guess we can start off with. Firstly, I just want to I'm sure I speak for many people, many guests. You're a legend. So just love to again congratulate you on just the amount of body of work and contribution you made to the community. But for anybody who's maybe joining us who's completely brand new to this, who is Ben Mauro?
I'm a senior concept designer and art director for the past, 15 years or so now. Started in kind of LA working at game studios like Insomniac, Ready at Dawn, and some smaller productions, and then moved to New Zealand to work at Weta Workshop, where I worked on the Hobbit trilogy, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Mortal Engines, Elysium, Chappie, whole bunch of different movies down there. And then I left to become a freelance artist, and I kind of traveled the world for 3 years, living out of a suitcase. I kind of sold all my belongings and freelanced on a bunch of video games like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3 and 4, and kind of hop back and forth between games and films like Valerian, and then most recently kind of settled down the last couple of years in Seattle to work on Halo Infinite for the last few years while I was finishing my graphic novel Huxley, which has finally been released this past year.
I'd love to jump into Huxley almost straight away, but I guess just in terms of your career in general, I mean, like it's very it's a rich career in that sense. That is like, again, a lot of companies, a lot of projects you've been on, and a vast amount of experience I'm sure that you've gathered as well. Like, what would you say is, well, firstly, how long has that career been going on for? And I'm sure obviously still continuing as well, but like, what was that first defining moment of like, this is when my career actually began? And how long has that been up until today?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say because like, I feel like I started kind of late as an artist. Like when I went to Art Center and met a lot of the people there, like there's kind of like a culture of like people who went to and studied industrial design in Los Angeles and like say they have like older siblings who taught them how to be like the most badass like industrial designers since they were like 5, and then they were already like amazing. And I was just like, I was like starting from number 1, like how do I draw a cube in perspective? They're like drawing these giant vehicles and stuff. So like, I didn't really start any of this stuff till I was maybe like 18 or so, 18 or 19, and was like, I really want to be an artist in games, and like, what does that mean? How do I do that? And so that led me down my path. And but I just really liked video games and stuff in high school, and it was pretty late until I figured out like I'd love to do this for a living, and especially like the first Halo game I was just obsessed with, and I thought it'd be cool to like design architecture or levels. I was just really fascinated, especially with like the Forerunner architecture. Like I just thought that would be a really cool thing to do, is just creating these environments in 3D. And that was the initial like spark to like, I want to do this. And obviously I kind of went down a different path and did a bunch of different stuff, but eventually made my way back to Halo and ended up getting to work on those Forerunner architecture, which was really cool, full circle. But it was a winding road to kind of do that.
And like with that, I guess, winding road, would you say, looking back at it now, would you have it any other way?
No, I don't think so. I think that's something that I've always tried to do, is like keep in mind where I am kind of on my journey and what I need as an artist to grow. And so every decision I made has been, what do I need to learn now to get better? Or what do I need to learn, or what experiences do I need to become a better person? And I would always chase those experiences. So like going to Weta was like, I feel like there's something there. Like when District 9 and all these movies came out, there's just such different perspective on design that I was not seeing in Los Angeles at the time. And I felt like the only way to learn that unique kind of perspective that was happening was to change my whole life and go there and have that experience and understand why they thought that way or why they came to those design conclusions. And I just felt like that if I stayed in LA, I would get really good, but maybe I would not have that unique perspective. And so I'm always chasing that just quality that I don't see in myself and I don't see in my environment. And so I'm willing to like, change my whole life to chase that and pursue that knowledge. And so after that, it was like, I feel like I've worked too much and I'm stuck in an office, and I've learned that thing that I was searching for, but now I feel like my life is empty and hollow. And I really felt like I needed life experience and I needed to travel. And so the next thing was just like, I need to sell all my belongings again and live on the road and just see the whole world and experience life. And like thinking of everything like RPG meters or something. Like my work meter was really high. My life meter was 0. I need to fill up my life meter. And then after that experience, like it's always like a yin yang and like a pro and con. Like when I was traveling and stuff, my tools were much more limited than when I was in the office. So I couldn't experiment and explore and learn all these cool new things that were happening at the time, like all the stuff with Blender and Octane and all these things that I was like, I felt like I was stagnating a bit. So like I had to rely on what I knew, even though my life was very exciting and learning all these things, but my work I was kind of coasting on what I already knew I could do. And so once that kind of life meter was full, I felt like it was time. I needed to like go back and like level up again and on the art side. And it was just time to like flip that once again.
I think how you describe that is like, that's basically essentially, I guess, the perfect way to describe how one, especially as an artist, and I think it applies to anything, should like grow, or at least look at the certain things that like exactly like you mentioned, where you think maybe something's lacking, or you not necessarily just lacking, you just think you want to add something else, or even if everything does, like, you hit home runs every single time, and maybe that you just kind of want to feel a bit more, I guess, of the difficulty, just trying to seek that thing that can give you that is, I think, that the ultimate perfect recipe. And then like you mentioned, you can easily quickly go all into that thing, and then that becomes out of balance, and then it's all about kind of finding the balance. And that balance sometimes need to be fueled as well. It's kind of that circle, like you mentioned, yin and yang. almost like this infinite kind of like leveling up process. Did that ever get overwhelming for you though, at any point?
I think so. I think I've also always been like pretty good at self-reflection and like really taking a good kind of like reading of like, am I pushing myself too far? Is this too much? Definitely like after Art Center and the work mentality in LA is like very much like 24/7 kill yourself like all the time. And by the time I got to New Zealand, the pace of life was much slower. And it was very much like 9 to 5, like get out of here, don't stay late, like don't come in on the weekend. And to me, that was just like, what do you mean? Then what am I supposed to do? Like I have to be working all the time. And it was like, it took a while for me to like, okay, I need, this is not healthy. Like I need to slow down. I need to like go out and like go hiking or something on the weekend or just do something normal, get rest. It took about a year or two of just like slowing down a little bit and getting sleep to feel like almost back to normal. Like I was like staying up 2 days in a row and like doing all this crazy stuff to in LA to like work too much. It was just very mentally unhealthy.
Like
so
sorry, please,
kind of balanced me out. I think New Zealand kind of like centered me and rebalanced everything quite a bit.
So if you didn't go to New Zealand, what do you think would have taken that place to center you? Because I guess like you would have like kind of wanted the balance, essential, to be centered. Like you would have still seeked that whether you could go to New Zealand or not. Do you think you still would have found that, or is it almost like who would Ben be if he had stayed in LA?
I don't know, because I do have friends that did that, and some of them like did burn out and are no longer artists. They were just like, I don't want to do this. This is not healthy. I gotta go. I'm gonna go do something totally different because this is just not. It's too stressful. It's too unhealthy. I can't do this. And part of me felt like that probably would have happened, or potentially would have happened if I stayed, because you're just like, I need something like, it's too much. This is like too stressful. It's too intense. I can't, it's not healthy to do that all the time. And I'm sure I probably would have found some way to balance out, but like, it feels like the mentality and the overarching like sentiment was like, that's how you should do it. Keep going like this. And again,
is that something that you had, like, was that part of your mentality anyway, or was that something you kind of adopted because that's what was happening around you?
Probably a little bit of both. Like for me, it was always like, I'll do anything I have to do to get better in order to change my life and, get the job or get the, cause like when you're a student going up, it's like, you need an extraordinary amount of effort and energy to like push yourself into like this next plateau of like your life. Like I'm broke. I don't have anything. I just need to like grind my way up the ladder and hopefully get a cool job that will allow me to like take a beat and like, okay, I'll be here on this game. It's going to take a couple of years and I'm being taken care of and I can kind of have a life a little bit. But like that grind to go up the ladder to that plateau is, it's always like an extraordinary amount of effort and stress and stuff. And like, I think when you're younger, it's, it can be a lot, putting yourself through that.
Like something that I've kind of experiencing personally is a bit like what you just mentioned yourself. It's a case of, appreciating more of the stuff that's not art related or even work related. Like you mentioned, just, whether it's taking a walk or appreciating the other different things that life has to offer. And even just like stuff that maybe you already appreciate, but making more time for it. Like doing that's something that I'm, it's like, again, different level, of course, but this the same, like what you experienced, like a case of just crunching for a long amount of time. Again, just trying to like, hit goals and achieve certain milestones. But then something that I experienced, and I'd love to ask you the same thing, is definitely was more like a physical and a health, like in the physical side, obviously mental health as well, but physical side where it kind of was like, yo, bro, you can't keep doing this. Something's gonna fall off. So like, did that happen to yourself, or like, were there any kind of like, obviously like sleep for yourself, for example, you just mentioned that like that's something that, to the point where like, yeah, when I was younger, yeah, couple of days or maybe even more sometimes, like you can kind of like get away with it, or sleep for a couple of hours and then start your day. Now it's a case of like, if I don't sleep, then it's kind of messed me up for almost a week. But just like on the health side of things, is there anything that kind of was like ringing alarm bells for yourself, or something like you mentioned, like you said, you're quite good at like just analyzing things and doing self-reflection? Like, were there certain patterns that you were noticing that you I don't want to go down that road at all?
I think a lot of it is probably, yeah, like the overworking and lack of sleep really adds up, especially when you're older. Like, there's been a couple times recently. It's more of just like, I think it's like a mental state that I can tell. It's almost like in my head, it's like a feeling of just like, I'm getting too close to like a fire that's burning me. And but it's just like a mental feeling of just it's getting too much. It's getting too much. You got to slow down. And it's like, you're getting too close to the sun. It's going to melt you or something. But like, it's always like staying a certain level of that, where it's like, I push myself too far Monday night. I really got to like take a beat, or else, you just feel like you're in a zone that's past where you should be. And it's going to hurt you later if you don't kind of like keep an eye on it. But I guess I've passed that threshold many times. So like, I know, like, it's like jumping on the hot coals. It's like, I know I can do it for a little bit, but then I got to like jump off. And like, if you stay there too long, your feet are going to burn, or whatever the metaphor might be.
And is that something that's kind of like still happening for you even today?
Yeah.
You're just, I guess, more aware of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what I learned was, or what I told myself was like, I know I can do that and push myself to that level, but I'm only going to do that for myself and my own projects going forward, because I just saw like there wasn't really, I mean, there was a benefit to doing it for other people, especially when you're younger. You're learning all this stuff, you want to get better. But I think after a while, once you do that a certain amount of times, it's like, okay, I've achieved that skill that I wanted. And now the only time I'm going to do that extraordinary amount of effort is for my own things, where I'm pushing myself past the limit. Because a lot of times they do, but like a lot of times these bigger companies just aren't going to take care of us and don't really care. But sometimes they do. There's a lot of great studios that do that. But like, I think in my experience, I just got a bunch of them that didn't. So it just instilled in me, I need to look after myself. And whenever I'm going to do this crazy amount of effort, it's probably better to focus that on something that's mine, that hopefully one day will turn into something like Huxley. So I guess I just have always been thinking about things like that in like a short and long-term sense, like when to do that crazy amount of effort, which I feel the past year or so has been me pushing myself past that limit and into like getting burned up by the sun, or whatever you want to call it. But it was worth it, because like, maybe it takes a little time off the end of my life, but it's worth it to allow this thing to grow that's mine, and allow this thing to get out to the world. So
that's
worth it.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Like, it's a case of, like, I'm a parent, so I guess it's, like, looking after a kid can be tiring as hell. Almost to the point where, it's like you are past that burnout stage. But at the same time, like you mentioned, like watching something grow and something that's far, like limitless potential, like it is definitely worth it in that sense. And also what you just mentioned there about, like your thoughts on companies and doing something for yourself versus others, based on your experience. And, you've had like a vast experience in terms of working for companies and as a freelancer. That holds a lot of weight, I'm sure, not just for me, which it does, but for listeners as well. Because like, again, I'm like just embarking on that freelance life and, trying to make things work. And already there's that kind of sentiment there for me. And then for someone like yourself who, again, like your portfolio speaks for itself, your credits speak for itself. So, like when you are feeling like that, for example, but you still got work to do you kind of like have to go into a certain zone to kind of make sure, like, does it affect, I guess, how you deliver work, and does it even affect your work in general when that kind of stuff starts creeping in?
Which thing?
Just like, when you get that sentiment of like, okay, like the company's not look after you, for example, or just maybe like, okay, this is a lot of work I'm doing for somebody else. I could be doing my own thing. Like when you get that to that point where you're thinking, I'd rather put this effort into, I guess, my own thing, but then I've also got client stuff to do. Did that ever
Gotcha.
kind of distract you from, I guess, the deliverables you had for your clients?
I don't think so. I think because it's like an unwritten like exchange, or it's like here's the game. Like no one calls it a game, but it's like it is kind of a game. It's like I'm in this environment. I need to do something for someone else in order to get money to kind of fund my bills, in order to buy myself time so that I could work on my own stuff. But I also need to make sure to do this other thing that buys me more time to keep this cycle going. And it's just part of the ecosystem that we're kind of in. And I'm just okay with that. Or it's like, okay, I need to block out this much time in order to buy myself the runway I need in order to spend that chunk of time on my thing, which will hopefully someday be able to earn more and get me out of that kind of system. And so I guess I'm just always very aware of like, kind of like the game we are in, or like the kind of ecosystem we are in, and just understanding the kind of like economics of everything, and the time versus return reward or value reward of what we're offering. So it's always like, my time for this person gives me this much value, which buys me this much time in order to work on this thing that I want to do. But it's usually never one or the other. It's like kind of have to do them all at once. And there were times, especially on Huxley, where it was like, I'm going to take 6 months off and I'm only going to work on pages and let's see how far I get. And I found it never worked very well for me, because I need that kind of balance of chaos and order, where like working for a company is very structured. It's like, okay, we need this deadline by Thursday. And it structures your mind every day. Like, well, if I don't do this, I'm not going to have anything by Thursday, and then I'm going to get fired, and then it's going to be a disaster, and then I can't work on my thing. So like, I need that structure. And then once I start going to work on my stuff, I'm that structured as well. And I felt like it was more efficient that way than, whereas in my mind, I thought it would be better if I just had all this free time to work on my thing. But I found my mind's, maybe for a week, it was really good having that much time on it. But then my mind got very unstructured. I started to like second guess myself. I started like redoing pages over and over because I wasn't happy. Because when you work for a client, it's just like, well, I only have till Thursday. That's what it is, you know? And that kind of like very efficient thinking when a client needs something is also quite good to have for your own thing. Obviously you want to spend time to make it look nice, but like just being able to say like, that's what the page looks like, I got to move on. Or else I'm never gonna finish this if I keep redoing this page. Got to move on to the next page. Maybe I'll figure it out later. And so I needed both of them. I found. I'm sure some people are great at without it, but like for me, I needed that structure of a day job, and almost like not an anger, but like I need something that like takes time away from me, so that not that I'm mad, but like you're just like, you're thinking about the thing you want to do for yourself all day while you're working on this other thing. So when you go home, you're using that time as efficiently as possible. And I just needed that kind of balance.
And Huxley. So like, I was just looking again, just for your work today. And I think like, cause obviously Huxley, I believe, like, how long has it been in the works for? Like, when was the first when did it start becoming a thing for you?
It's definitely close to a decade, maybe a little more for some of the early drawings. Like some of the robots in there were like from like, I don't know, like I think I saw it was like 2008 or something. Like it really like I didn't know what it was going to be, but I just liked drawing this kind of style. And And then maybe like 8 or so years ago, I designed the main character, and it was just like all these other things I've been doing. It kind of formed to like an idea once that character was designed. It was like I want to tell a story with this. I want to do something with this, and it just got me thinking about like what's the best way to do that? What is the best way to create an IP and develop it over many years? And I mean, we were doing that every day on our day job, where it's like you see someone come, like especially at Weta, it was like, here's a director that comes to us. They just have like 2 sentences on a paper while they're writing a script. We help them develop all these ideas and build a world. And then the script's done, and then they have the art and the script, and they go to pitch it to make the film. And you kind of, once you go through that whole process from like start to finish a couple times, you're just like, you kind of understand how the sausage is made, if you will. And it's like you start getting instilled like how this process works over and over, and understanding how you can do it for yourself. But in a lot of those cases, it was like the process required hundreds and hundreds of people to get to that point. And it was like, well, if I just want to do this myself, what's the best way to do that as an artist? And I still feel like the graphic novel is one of the best ways to do that, telling a long form story and designing an entire universe that one single creator can still do. It's a lot of work. And I mean, it obviously took me many years to do it myself, but like, because you basically have to do all those jobs that other people are doing. You have to be the director, you have to be the writer, you have to be the production designer, the concept artist. You have to do all that stuff yourself. And it was scary, but it was also what excited me about this idea. And it was definitely hard to just sit there in a little room for almost a decade, just be like, this is going to be really cool when it's done, and not show anyone and not talk about it. And yeah, it was very, but that's kind of the experience I wanted, right? Like I want to make something I'm proud of, put all my energy into this kind of child, if you will, of mine, like this piece of art that will hopefully go in the world and grow up and be something that people will enjoy and like. And yeah, it's kind of born and out the door, and now it's like, you know, it was 10 years to get here, and it's probably, I'm starting on the next 10 years now, and it'll be a whole other thing, but I'm excited about that.
It's growing, I guess. That's really, really well. Like, yeah, it's awesome. Like, just even the steps that you've been seeing, let's say up until the trailer, which dropped last week, is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Just over a week or so. Yeah. So like up until that point, like it was just already like, okay, you're looking at the stuff that you've been putting out and the potential that it has, and thinking this is going to be cool, this is sick, this is awesome. And like just you mentioned before about some of the early sketches. I think it's on your ArtStation, and on the description you basically put some pencil sketches done in between client work, and that's basically it. So like, you know, that's kind of almost, and for me that's like awesome to see. Like it was just, I guess, from yourself, just like you know, as artists are, it's always constantly creating, sketching, jotting ideas down. That something from such a humble beginning can become what it is becoming, and hopefully who knows where it can go further on. But like, when did you kind of start thinking? Actually, I have a few questions into this kind of one question. So let's see if this works. Again, looking at your work, like you pretty much do and have done everything. So like you mentioned, like, you know, environments, vehicles, aliens, creatures, props, the whole lot. And also for different types of worlds and universes as well. They're not just kind of like all the same thing. Like, you know, you got like Call of Duty, up to Elysium, Hobbit, you know, they're very contrasting worlds. So what you can kind of observe with artists is there is a lot of output from us, but maybe it's never concentrated, and it always kind of like, you know, shoots back and forth. So how did you decide that this is the kind of universe you wanted to build? And did all of that experience doing all these different types of things really help you with fleshing out that world? So I guess what I could have said initially was, what initiated the idea of Huxley?
Yeah, well, from the style standpoint, I think it's just a lot of the things that I would naturally go to draw, like these kind of things I was influenced by, like all these, like, it's very much a merging of like all the Japanese and French artists that I love, like Mobius and Otomo, and like all these like kind of art heroes that I love. Like when I was starting and I was just like looking at all the art in the world and like what is like I thought the coolest, I immediately just would gravitate towards these like Japanese and French artists from like the 70s and 80s, and just something they were doing was just like, this is just speaks to me. I love this. And so whenever I would sit down to like draw and do stuff, that would be kind of what would come out of it. And I think a lot of the earlier days was like, it was almost like therapy for like, because working in a film environment, it's almost like a never ending arms race of like new techniques to attain photorealism for whatever the client wants. So like when I got in, it was still like drawing and just like Photoshop coloring your drawings. And then quickly it turned into like ZBrush to get more photorealistic representation of what the thing will be in the movie. And then it was like photo bashing. And then it got to the point where it was just like, I don't feel like an artist anymore. I feel like I'm just cutting things off Google and like mashing them together. And like, this is not art to me. I don't feel like I'm doing anything. So like a lot of the early Huxley stuff was me going home at night and just being like, I want to do something that I feel like I'm proud of and I feel like I'm an artist. And so a lot of it was just like going home and doing these drawings and growing this universe in a way that made me feel like creatively satisfied. And then on the other side of just like did all those other things I worked on help. And that was another thing that I think was important, was like the other seed I planted in myself was like I'm working for other people in order to attain skills so that I can use it for my own thing later. That was always in my mind, even from the very beginning. Like, I need to get good at everything so that I can do everything for myself later. So like, even if you maybe are like, man, this job sucks, I'm not getting paid that much, I was always thinking about what skills am I learning that is making this worth it so that I can do this for myself later. So like, there's always something to be gained, even if it's not like a monetary thing, where it's like, to me, that was always more valuable than like getting a big paycheck. Because I could go work on, we could always go work on some big sequel and make way more money, but we're not learning the valuable skill that we maybe need to be learning. And so I was always chasing the knowledge, always. And so like, okay, I'm going to work on this movie because I need to get better at creatures. Okay, I'm going to work on this movie because I need to get better at weapons. And I'm going to work on this movie because I need to get better at environments or whatever. And I was, again, the RPG meter, like I was always very self-aware of like where all my skills were and would try to take the job that would allow me to grow one that I was weakest at, and always trying to like push all of them up as equally as I could. Because I knew when I did Huxley, I would have to do every job, or whatever the project ended up being that I was going to do, I would have to do every job myself at the beginning.
And when did it get to the point, or like, was there a particular piece, or like when you thought, okay, this is something that is going to be almost what it is today? So was there a defining moment, or was it just like, again, like a gradual thing that just kept, like building and growing as more time and effort and love you put into?
It's probably a gradual thing, but like once I did the kind of orange robot that ended up being Huxley, that was like, here's one of the characters. This is like, who is this robot? What is like, what's the story? What's this universe? And it just was like a slow building around that kind of seed. I always think of it like that. It's a seed that I'm planting that I'm growing into a tree. And that was probably one of the earlier seeds that kind of helped inform where I would take all this. And a lot of it too, though, was like, I want to do this. I started thinking about a story. I started thinking about like what the first couple pages might look like. And I think a lot of it was, it's also very daunting because like, I didn't start as a writer. I've never done any of that before. And so like a lot of it was like, maybe my skill as an artist is very high, but like my skill as a writer is zero. But I know how I know how to grind and attain a skill because I've done that with art. So it's like, how do I do that for writing? It's like writing books, understanding how writers think, and like slowly growing that skill along with all the other things I had to be learning. And that's also why I'm glad it took quite a while, because it allowed me to grow all these other skills that I wasn't initially familiar with.
And like, that's actually was my next question going to be about the writing aspect. And, you know, like, I guess even before you brushed up on the writing side of things, I'm sure there's a lot of like a world building going on already. And all the stuff that you see that you've already done so far, like there's always like this nice little captions that you have on ArtStation and everywhere else you put work where like, you know, this is what's happening in this part of the story. And it's not just, hey, this is a cool image. There's like the description is almost as equally as powerful as the image itself. And it definitely adds more to the image and vice versa. So like, how, like, do you enjoy, but it's from my impression is that you also enjoy like the world building aspect of it as well. Is that, am I right in that? Or is that something that kind of came along when you started tackling the writing side of things?
No, I think that's always what I'm like. It's hard for me to just like create one-off images. Like I have to be like, it's like we're bringing into existence a thing that isn't real yet. Mm-hmm. But by us creating it, it is bringing it into existence. So I'm always thinking about this. And like, once you work in film, like you just get addicted to like doing that. Like like on The Hobbit, it's like, I'm taking these words and bringing it into existence. And then we watch a movie of this thing happening now. And now we made it real. And so I guess I'm addicted to like that whole process of creating a universe. And that's just kind of like my life's pursuit now. Like I just love that. I mean, I've been doing it for other people, but now doing it for myself, and like, that's just, I could do that the rest of my life and be happy, you know, like bringing these things into existence that would never otherwise exist. And
how much work has gone into Huxley right now? Like, so obviously with the trailers come out, epic, like you hired a great guy in Sava to do that for you, and the team, like that's just, you know, exquisite. Obviously, so what we've seen in this trailer so far, how obviously, I know you can't say too much about it, but like how much of the Huxley world have you fleshed out so far, at least in your brain?
Quite. I mean, the comic has a ton of stuff. I mean, the comics have been done for like 2 years now, and it's just been figuring out the best way to release it. Well, it comes in 1 or 2 years, probably like 2 years now. But like, it's just been figuring out the best way to release it, and the trailer's been done for over a year. And again, just sitting on it, like, what is the best way to get this out there and release it? And a lot of it's just been release strategy once the product is done. But the comic has like a huge amount of the world. But obviously, you could like flesh out all these different areas. Like if a game gets made or whenever that gets made, like, okay, I hinted at this little thing in this panel, but like, let's make this whole wasteland area really cool. And like, again, the graphic novel is like a seed that can turn into many different trees. And I just kind of view it like that. It's just keeping it focused on like, this is what I need to create now to get this product out the door. And then it's like, okay, when the game stuff is going, it's like, now let's grow this part. But if you try to do all that at once, you'll never finish anything, you know? It's just keeping the blinders on of what you need to make at this specific moment.
So do you have like a kind of, I guess, vision of how this world can be experienced? Obviously, we've got the graphic novel, we've got the comic books. There's a movie in production, which you shared last week as well. And now, like, I guess the game side of things as well is like, I guess there's no like, it makes sense to kind of, you know, experience this in all these different realms because it just seems like it could fit in those kind of spaces as well. And like you mentioned, you're a fan of games, that kind of what got you into art as well. So it makes sense to do all those kind of things. But like, I can imagine that must be quite like an immense task like to undertake. And is it kind of like that right now? Like how are you kind of breaking it down to get these things done? Or is it kind of just a case of, okay, this is where like, the goal is, and then once we get an opportunity to kind of achieve it, then we'll go ahead and go for that?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I just have to get more used to accepting is like I can't do everything now. Like, so a lot of it is definitely starting to be me needing to like not take a step back, but like I need to be guiding other people to help get all these things going. And part of me when I was younger hated that idea, but now that it's kind of happening, I kind of don't mind it. I still get time to do work, but like I'm seeing like in order to make all these things happening, I kind of have to like be help more of just taking a step back and like helping guide different teams and stuff. It's just different, but I kind of like it in a way where it's like I kind of did a lot of the foundation work that now can be pushed by really amazing people and also allows me to like understanding the experience that I went through and all the bad stuff that could potentially happen. Like I can be the client I always wish I had, which has been really cool. Like all the things that were really crappy that I experienced, I like make sure I do the opposite where like all the people I'm starting to work with, like they're like so happy with the way I'm doing things. Like, and just like, wait, really? Like just like the response is just like really cool. It's like, cause I know all the crappy things that people do in our industry. And I just like cut that out and don't do that. And so it's been really cool to like, I can make these positive changes in other ways that like I had to live through most of my career.
I gotta congratulate you for that then. And that's great to see. Why do you think it is like that in the industry from based on your experiences? Like, is there kind of like a certain thing, or is it many things that perhaps it could be?
I think a lot of it is just like, I don't know, like fear and insecurity a lot of the times from bigger companies of just like being as cost effective as possible to like get the most out of us for the least amount as possible. And so I think a lot of it just stems from people in those positions being like too budget focused and efficient on that way. And like most of them have never been artists. So they're just like, yeah, who cares? You guys do this all day. Like, give me some more. And so like me being in that position where I value the artist the most, I flip that on its head where it's like, I'm valuing the people that I have the understanding of and I live through. So like, I see that as like a cool change that I can make where if I'm in that position, I can value the people that I think are the most valuable or some of the most valuable.
That's kind of like, I guess, the hunch that I have had is that when there is that kind of like a disconnect in that sense, like between a different department or, you know, like how artists are maybe treated or even asked to do certain things, it is because of like a lack of understanding of what that role actually is, or maybe that individual or that organization doesn't necessarily understand what's required to do that, which kind of makes sense because that's why that person or that group of people were hired in the first place, because they have no one to do it. But then over the last few years, just seeing like how artists like yourself are able to now create their own worlds and are now hiring people within the industry to make the things, it just seems like, and you've confirmed that would be like a much better experience because of exactly what you just said. You get the artist and you get what can and can't be done, and also what also can be done. So, for example, if someone maybe kind of not giving their 100%, maybe, or you can extract more out of it, you kind of know how to do that. Also, the landscape, I guess, is changing because, and as a Huxley showing that it doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional route to create and build something. And maybe it could be like a grass is always greener kind of thing from my perspective. Hope I'm wrong, but it does look like there's a whole lot of green grass in that kind of space. And it's going to be a rich experience for a lot of artists who are making things like yourself, who are looking to hire, and people who are offering their services to work in that kind of space. And I think a lot of awesome things are going to happen. And like, what are your thoughts on that? Because, and I guess what I'm referring to more so is a couple of things in the sense of like, the artists are now becoming the studios in effect, like the ones that are actually hiring. So the structure's changing, and also how money is made from artists is not necessarily within the industry anymore. And obviously without mentioning things like, NFT in the crypto space. And you're someone who's had success in that field. And definitely, like, I've seen some of your other podcasts and interviews done as well, where you mentioned like what that experience was like. And correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, but that was something that you wanted to get into quite early on. So like, what would you like to, I guess, like, I'd love to get your insight into that kind of, I guess, sphere of, I guess, creativity, and like, how do you think it can benefit or affect the way our current ecosystem is as creatives?
I think I missed the question. Like, what is the? I guess, yeah. Which question?
So like I guess the crypto space and NFT space, like, and even just like artists hiring other artists now being, I guess, the bosses. Like, like, how do you think that's going to affect the way things are going to be now?
I think it's really positive. I mean, I was talking about this with someone else. Like, there's been these moments for artists over the last, say, like 15 years that I've been working, right? Like, at first it was maybe tutorials, and that was like, oh my God, we can make that much with our art. And then it kind of died down. And like each one of those times, like, I got involved a little bit. It's like, okay, let me try that. But like, okay, what's the end result of that? Okay, I need to like start a school, become a teacher, and do all this. Like, now I'm not being an artist anymore. I am becoming an educator, which is fine if that's what you like. But like, to me, that was just not who I am. So like, I did a little bit, but it was just like, okay, I got something out the door. Like, I really need to get back to like being who I am, which is building universes and creating my own franchises, like I have been doing. And so like, it's like this big runway of like opportunities for artists, and every few years, like, a new one pops up that allows us to do something more with our art. And so the kind of like tutorial thing was like, okay, kind of for me, not really. Let me get back to work. And then it was like YouTube, being like a YouTuber, and it was like, I don't want to be like a media entertainer. Like, you basically have to become this media entertainer guy, and you're chasing likes and attention to get more views, which will eventually lead to advertising revenue. And that's that game. And to me, that just wasn't my personality. And I think most artists' personality that like to just, we're kind of pretty introspective and quiet. But more power to people who do enjoy that and have been very successful. But for me, again, it was another one of those like, okay, tutorials, yeah, maybe not really for me. YouTuber, not for me. And then with the NFT stuff, it was like, I kind of popped my head out and was like, wait, so I can make money creating the art that I love and have been trying to create my whole life, and people will buy it. I don't have to do anything else. It's just make my art and sell my art to people who like it. That's the one. That is the one for me. And it was just like my values and my creative goals aligned with what the market was, what was happening in the market. So for me, it was like these moments, and this was the one that connected with me the most directly, where it was like, I get to be myself, I get to sell my art, and I get to make money with my art. And to me, that was just like a no-brainer. And that just kind of solved every problem I've had as a digital artist my entire career. And I think most of us, our entire careers. So yeah, I just feel like that's one of the biggest moments in our history that we're going to look back on. And I know there's a lot of debate and heated debate in certain points, but like, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, I think this is one of the most pivotal moments for digital creatives in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And the genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going back,
When did you discover that, like, this kind of space? Like, did you find it early on? Because for me, it was just a case of pretty much like 12 months ago, almost, at the beginning of last year, where it kind of really exploded and everyone's trying to get on platforms, mm-hmm. for example. Was that same time for you, or was it a bit earlier than that?
Probably maybe like 4 or so months before, when Beeple was kind of starting to talk about it. Uh-huh. It's like, there's this thing called NFTs. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to think about it. And I had a few friends like that I followed for a while, Victor Mascara, who I saw was also doing it, and I was like, "Hey, what is exactly is this?" And he explained like super rare to me and like what was happening and helped me through like the application process and stuff. And then I kind of just started experimenting, like I always do. Like, hey, what is this? What do I do here? How does this work? And I just like get curious and figure things out, and kind of haven't looked back since then.
And you mentioned before, like about certain areas, I guess, like heated debates and just there's a lot of debate and stuff. I guess that's going to be the case because something, at least from my perspective, is brand new. And when there's something brand new, kind of like untapped, unknown, there's always that kind of, I guess, polarized opinions and people trying to kind of figure things out. But where do you think a lot of the debate stems from? And for at least from your perspective, because your perspective is different from mine. Like, I'm someone who's like kind of still trying to figure out, trying to get in, don't even know which way to go, which is the place. Because let's take being a digital artist, for example. It's a case of, it's kind of a simple structure. You got to build your portfolio, get you level up, and then put yourself out there and get hired. And then from there, kind of like, branches off to where it's going to branch off.
Sure.
At least the way I can see it, like the NFT side of things, and even just marketing art in that way, it's like, which place is it? Is it the ones that are kind of like gated off and you have to apply for it and kind of wait to get on? Is it the ones that are like open sea where you can just mint something and just go ahead? Is it, there's like loads of different things, which is cool to see that's different varieties and stuff as well, but it's still kind of like, a bit overwhelming perhaps, like to kind of see like,
Sure.
what is the way to go, and which of my, and I think it was Alexander did a podcast with, he kind of mentioned as well, is that concept art doesn't really typically, or cannot maybe do so well in that space versus different other types of art. So there's that kind of element to it as well. I do change my structure and stuff. But again, just to go back to my original question is, like, from your perspective, what would you say are the pros and cons that you are seeing and have seen since you jumped in?
I think, well, it's like anything, right? Like when the tutorial era or the YouTube era happened for artists, like it's the same thing, right? Like people were doing this one thing and they're like, wait, I can make money making YouTube videos. And then you get stuck in the trap of like, well, this video of my art doesn't do very well. Why does that video do so well? Okay, I'm going to make videos like that now. And then, that did better. I'm going to go make more videos like that now. And now you've completely changed your entire personality and your entire artistic output to cater to what gets the most attention and likes. And to me, I've always never liked that. And so with the NFT stuff, I treat it the same way. It's like, I am building this thing for the past whatever decade. I want to release it in this way. And I'm not going to like change everything about myself to cater to a market that maybe at the moment likes these couple things that are, it's fine, but it's just not me. So you have choices. It's just like, do I stick to who I am and release something that I think is cool? Maybe you have to change a few things, just like how it's released, but I would try not to like, this is selling, I'm only going to make that. And then you basically change your entire existence and it's on the blockchain forever. And now your name is tied to this thing that maybe looks nothing like you've ever done before. And it's like, maybe that's not the best way to do it. But yeah, it's just everyone just trying to figure out what works for them. And to me, again, I've always just stuck to who I am and I just want to be myself. And I have done that. And it was scary though, because like releasing Huxley in this way, it wasn't an instant success or anything. Like there was months and months of very slow sales, like sometimes no sales, and just me keep going saying like, I'm going to keep trying. Like, let's keep trying, and I think some people that have tried to jump into all this stuff and were not immediately successful. They're like, this is stupid. It's all a big sham. Like I didn't become a success in like an hour, and then they leave. And I feel like with anything, like even on YouTube, imagine making one YouTube video and being like, oh, it's all a scam. This is all so stupid. No one liked my video. I'm out of here. You're not going to go anywhere with that way either, So it's like, if you're really serious about it and want to do it, you got to do a lot of time and research and like figure out what you want to do, maybe find people to partner with and try something out. And everything but to me, that's like everything, right? Like every step of the way for artists, it's always been like that. Like you could say the same thing for the tutorial thing. Like, oh, I made this Gumroad tutorial, no one bought it. Gumroad's a scam. It's all a big lie. Like everyone saying they made money with Gumroad's a liar and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, you could say that for anything. You know?
So, and I think again, like just to highlight what you mentioned there, and it's quite evident, at least in this conversation we've had today, that you definitely stick to like your philosophy and what you believe in. And as you've shown, like in different industries and different, like, you know, changing completely scenery anyway, and all these different things you've changed, is that hasn't changed. And like you mentioned with the NFT space and even whatever's to come next, like it's clear that whatever your vision is and what you want to achieve, that's never going to like be compromised. And I think that's quite an important lesson to heed from anybody, is like, if you're not getting maybe the quote unquote results, for example, that necessarily is not what you're kind of there for. And again, like for the NFT stuff, you definitely made headlines as well, because you made, you know, a significant amount of money in that as well. And the vibe I have gotten since, and even prior to that anyway, because I guess up until the NFT kind of thing, the money aspect of art was always kind of ambiguous. It was kind of like guesswork, or, you know, unless you had experience in that field, and, you know, it's kind of everyone's trying to guess what could be made, and it's all like, you know, speculation. The NFTs kind of definitely put a number on those things. You can actually see what people are making. But it didn't seem to me that that was the goal for you. Like, you know, it almost was a case of, it was the Evolution drop, I believe, that made, was it $2 million? It was like, yeah, it made $2 million. Let's, you know, move on to the next thing. Like, what is your relationship with money, and has the NFT side of things, like, because huge volumes of money are being made, have been made, and will continue to be made. Does that affect, I guess, yourself and your art in any particular way?
I think for me, because I haven't changed anything about my life in the past year. Like, it's just more like I can scale up and accelerate the things I've wanted to create. Whereas like all the things I'm doing with Huxley and stuff right now, like I thought it would take me 10 years to get to that point to be able to create these things. But now I could do it now, right? Like I could do it in a year and fund that stuff, instead of, this will probably take me like 10, 15 years to be able to like get it to that point to fund all that stuff. So for me, it's just more of like, I can make all this stuff happen faster and sooner than I could have in the kind of Web2 traditional path that we had available to us. So for me, I just see it as like I want to make this cool stuff. Now I can make it faster. So I just see it like that. Like, all I want to do is make this cool stuff. And I was basically going to release this anyway, right? It was like, okay, I'm going to look at publishers and do all this stuff and try to do all, like, I was still going to try to do all these things, but I found this to be a much more interesting and direct way to do it, and allow me to like earn the income for my art, as opposed to someone else taking all of it, which would have happened in the more traditional models that were available to us. So like, I think one of the things that have been like off-putting to some people is like they seem to be getting mad that artists are making money with their work, but it's like someone else was making that money before and no one was getting mad. But now that the artist is getting all that money instead of all these other people that weren't doing anything, and people are getting mad, but it's just like, this is what was happening. You should be mad at what was happening before.
Yes. Well, exactly. It's like, you know, are you mad
it's
at
more
the
like,
money?
Here's the money being generated with your creation that has always been being generated. Like, this is how much has been generated with your work the whole time, but someone was taking 99.99999% of that for themselves. So like, that should be where the anger is.
And like, you know, like, I guess it's a question of also as well, is that money that was generated for other people, what was happening to that money? Whereas, you know, like an artist making, and like the artist making, and like the artist making that money, like most likely, yes, they probably want to buy a few nice things, but most likely knowing artists as I do, they're probably going to just use that to make more art, which I guess, as a consumer, that's like a cool thing, no? Like we always want, like, say, like our favorite directors, some of the big ones have done like the ones that you can clearly see were gigs versus the ones that were their passion projects. And most often than not, the passion projects are ones that you want to see more than anything else. And is that something that you kind of like how has that changed the way you, like, do you feel like you have to make a living anymore now? Like, obviously before it was a case like making a living, making your way. Like now it's a case of, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about making what you want to make now. Is that what's taken place now? Like, is that the driving thing that drives you now? Or do you still feel like not? Because, at the same time, $2 million is a lot of money, but as people have shown, like Mike Tyson, for example, it can go in a day. So, it's like, yeah. So has that changed perspective in terms of where your career's at right now?
I guess so. I think it also just helps assign a value to our art and our self-worth, right? Which we didn't have before because digital art was no way to value it. And so now we can put a dollar amount on that value that we're providing. So with jobs that come in, we have more negotiating power, and you can negotiate a lot more because it's just like, well, this is how much my art is worth. Here's the data. Before we didn't have any data, and we were treated like, I don't know if it was like everyone, but in my cases, I was treated like garbage quite a bit, especially in the film industry early on, where it's just like, just go make more, give me 50 more by lunchtime. This is all just like trash. It's just random ideas. Who cares about what you're doing? Like, just make more. And you're like, okay. But like for us, it's like a lot of effort and work to create this stuff, but we were treated like it was just throwaway kind of fluff or something, So like, I feel like this just helps assign value that we never were able to assign value for. And, when projects come in, I'm just like, well, then I get all the rights for this and da 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 da. And they're like, oh, no. It's like, we can't do that. I'm like, well, then get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth our time.
I mean, that's essentially kind of like what George Lucas had issue with, if I'm not mistaken. Like initially, from the stuff that I've read, was a case of, I think he went to studio and they were like, yeah, we're just going to take X amount. And he goes, why are you not even doing a thing? He goes, that's how it is. So he went off and kind of did his thing. And now look at what that is. And fast forward till today, it's almost like you can do that yourself at home.
Yeah. And again, I've always just wanted, my goal has always been, I want to create my own universes and things that when I die, these things are left behind long after I'm gone and the whole world can enjoy them. And so my goal is always focused on like, how can I achieve this? And before, like when I made that trailer, like this was before all the NFT stuff. So like that was like my normal game industry salary. Like basically like every penny I had went into funding a team to work with me to make this. And so like that was like a really hard year of just like wife being angry at me because I don't have any money because I just wanted to make it's gonna be so cool. Just trust me. Like I just want to make this like awesome thing. And like and she's just like just like a lot of stress because I'm using all my income to like fund some animation of my comic or something. But I believe in myself, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is to back up my dreams and chase after the dreams I have. And it's like, we only have one life, and I might as well make the best of it, even if it's pretty stressful and not easy. And just kind of always try to go for it. And as I saw things getting made, I'm just like, man, this is so cool. It's worth it. It's worth it. And I don't know. I just feel like I also really, I guess I've always really admired people like Hayao Miyazaki and some of these other Japanese filmmakers where like he basically just like gives up his entire soul and existence to the thing he is making. And at the end, he's always like kind of grumpy and like, that was so like, I quit. I'm never going to make another one. And then you can see he just gets restless and is like, one more. I'm going to make one more movie. And he just comes out of retirement and makes another movie, and the same thing. But like, I really admire that just like just such strong passion and desire to create something of value. And I feel like when I was younger, that kind of scared me, but I think as I get older and where I'm at now, I'm kind of addicted to that pursuit of just like burn up my existence into like burn up or grind my existence into ash in pursuit of like making the most amazing art or thing. And like, just, I feel like I'm in a place where would be content doing that till my end days of just like, I want to create just amazing stuff that I love, that hopefully other people will love. And I'm going to do what I can to do that. And hopefully one day I can like what Miyazaki, the reverence I have for him and in his like never ending pursuit of like making great stuff. Maybe I can do that for someone else, and then they can do that for someone else, and so on. And I don't know. I just feel like the films and things he's made have touched me and the whole world on such a deep level. And like, that stuff's going to stay with us our entire lives. And it's going to stay with like our kids and their kids. And like that just idea of taking your experience and putting it into a piece of art that can touch other people in such a deep way is just like such a deep, big goal to me that I want to chase. So that's kind of like my, I don't know, like one of those like life things that's just like, it's kind of where I want to go.
You can 100% tell, like even just from the pages that without even meeting you, you could tell from the work anyway. And it's awesome to hear you actually say that as well, because it's evident, but for you to qualify as well, it's like, and whoever's listening to this and will listen to this, like it's important to kind of hear these kind of things, because you know, like before we create as professionals, the act of creating before that, like making art, was just almost in that same space of energy, right? Like, you know, just doing it for a passion, for something that you love, where you just can't help it. You just have to do this kind of thing. And it's interesting you mentioned as well that it scared you, but not to the point where you gave up. It was just a case of like, okay, I need to do, like you said, you know, level up so I get enough, you know, XP so I can tackle that next boss and then move on to the next thing. And then you're here today, where you are right now. And then like Miyazaki is a perfect example of the kind of a type of artist who creates the way he creates and the type of things he makes as well. Like you can analyze him and take a lifetime's worth of knowledge just analyzing how he works, but then take the things that he's made that touch way more people who may never even want to even know who the creator is. Like that's like some real magic right there. But it is from what you just mentioned as well. Like from my perspective is from that creator, whoever's creating it, like it's got to come from almost a pure place that you kind of really can't put into words. It's that kind of like emotion or it's that energy, and you kind of have to put it in there. Like you mentioned, you know, it's like, it's not just been a smooth sell. Like the struggle was real. You were putting money in. It wasn't a case of like, yeah, I'm just going to start doing this. And, you know, it was something that you had to like, it wasn't for free, basically. Not in time, not in money, and anything else as well. And, you know, it's like where, in terms of inspirations, you mentioned Miyazaki. Firstly, I just want to ask you, what is your favorite Miyazaki film? And is there one tough that you could pick?
I really like all of them for different reasons, but like, I don't know, man, that's tough. Like, there's definitely a lot of influence in me from Lapita and Nausicaa. Mm-hmm. Just because it's very like old school, like Japanese kind of sci-fi stuff in a way that I just really love. But I think a lot of the other movies that aren't very like science fiction just really stick with me. Like Porco Rosso, there's some really awesome stuff. And what was the other one? Howl's Moving Castle, and man, I gotta hold on.
No, but like just the stuff you mentioned there, like it's a great. Whoever's not familiar with this, like just go check out his library and just watch it all.
Yeah. Also, though, like Kiki's Delivery Service I watched recently is still just great. I mean, I get choked up thinking about the films a lot.
I mean,
but like The Wind Rises, which was maybe one of his more
I
like
haven't seen that one, no.
kind of realistic ones, but like, man, I was like bawling like a kid, just like, just, yeah, it's, yeah, I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
Like for me, if I had to pick one, is Spirited Away. Not because like from my experience of it, I think it's actually a beautiful film. Like, and I could watch that a million times over. But I think when I first watched it properly, I watched it before, but watched it properly, my daughter was, I think, about 2 or 3. So for her to watch a film, like put a Pixar film on, she watched about 20 minutes and just lose attention. She sat there in a language she doesn't understand and watched it all the way through. Like, if that doesn't show you that this person can make like legit visual magic to someone who doesn't, understand the words at all, but is just fixated on exactly what's going on there, that is like, that's like, that's slow clap, or you've nailed onto something there, you've hit something there. What other inspirations have inspired you, I guess, like as a creative, and also for Huxley in particular? Like, what other kind of creatives, and maybe not necessarily artists potentially as well, like maybe potentially other industries, are really kind of like either subconsciously or actively feeding into the world and the universe that you're building right now?
Well, first I want to actually mention like the kind of like thing, like it kind of scared me, but I accepted it thing we talked about a second ago. It's like, I remember when I was younger, like doing this for a living is like almost, it is like a lifetime pursuit, right? Like we will never be at the top. There's always something new to learn and grow. And when I was younger, that like scared the hell out of me. Like, we want to, in our mind, like, I think when we're younger, our mind is like, I want to have a start, middle, and end, and then it's done.
Yeah.
I've like achieved it. It's
like
over.
a game.
It's
like you want to complete the game, and that's it. Yeah.
It's done. And then it's like, but with art as a career, it's just like, yeah, for that, but now it's the next one, and then it's the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and it like will never end. And I remember that scared me, but then there was like a flipping that happened where it was like, man, it's so awesome that it never ends. Like I kind of flipped it where it was just like, like what else am I going to do? Like this is something I could do my whole life. Like That's so awesome. So like for me, it was like my thinking just changed quite a bit, whereas like that scared me that it's like too overwhelming and this is going to be there forever and it's never going to be finished. And like the flipping of just like, man, that's so awesome. It's something I can do forever and it's never going to be, it was like the same argument, but like a different context. And I just really thought that was, that makes me so excited about art instead of being scared about it now, where it's just an interesting perspective, I think.
Now, I share that exact same perspective, and it's kind of same kind of things. Like, I guess maybe just because I guess when you're younger, there's always that kind of like pressure of life that, you have to achieve something, you have to earn a living, and you don't want to be not so much left behind, like, in terms of status, but more so you want to be able to just earn and live a life, for example. But then exactly what you just said, it was a case of like, hold on, I can do something that I enjoy almost to my last breath, almost. Like, that's like cool. Like, and look at like a lot of stuff that we consume nowadays. Like, people go through things quickly, like binge watching stuff, and they have nothing left to watch and nothing left to play. And like, there's loads to read, and you never read every book. It's impossible to read every book that's out there. But there's always that kind of thing. I'm just gonna get almost bored of things. With this, you can't. And that's almost like a gift, you could say. And like, I guess like with Huxley then, is there kind of an end game for this? Or do you see this as something that you want to keep evolving for as long as you can keep evolving it?
Yeah, I mean, as long as possible. I mean, I always kind of viewed it like I want to make my own Star Wars or whatever you want to call it. And just doing what I can to put that out in the world and see where it goes. And yeah, people seem to really be liking it and enjoying it, and as it grows and evolves. And yeah, again, that like when I was younger, I was scared of something like that. Like, I don't know where it's going, but now I'm more excited by that. Like, I don't know where it's going. Let's see where this goes. Like, it's going to be cool. I don't know where it's going. Let's see.
Cool. And like in the terms of making Huxley, obviously it's getting like, I guess, serious in a sense, like, it's evolving to a lot of different platforms now, different things, like, movies are being made, potentially making a game, the novel and everything else, like it's growing to the point where you're having to, it's not just your sole input, it's many other creatives now that are getting involved in this. Is it still a source of enjoyment even with this happening? Or is that like, is enjoyment even greater now because it's moving along, or is it kind of like, has that, or I guess a question I'm trying to ask is like, is the amount of enjoyment you had before the same, or has it changed in a different way? Maybe.
Maybe it's just different because like for me, like again, like as someone who's growing, like the comic, I wanted to be 100% me. Like this is my pure distilled thing into pictures, into like a story form that people can enjoy. And even with the trailer, like there's some adaptation and things that start to happen. You got to let certain things go. And so doing that, I used to start learning to like the more people get involved, the more things will start to change and get compromised a little. But like I'm still okay with this happening, and it's as long as it's heading in a certain direction and honoring the things that I want it to honor, I'm okay with that. And the same thing when like a movie gets made, like I'm sure way more voices and hands will be involved, and as long as it keeps the core of what I created, and it just allows it to reach a bigger and bigger audience. So for me, that's like the end goal is like, okay, I made the blueprint and the seed. It's been adapted to show how cool it can be in this other medium. And now let's go make it in this other medium so that I can make my first thing like Miyazaki did, right? Like I remember reading the creation of Nausicaa was a very similar sort of process where he wanted to make a movie of Nausicaa and everyone was just like, nah, get out of here. And then he was just like, all right, I'm going to make a graphic novel. And then he just started making a graphic novel and then publishing it in like a Japanese magazine and started doing really well. And they're like, hey, let's make a movie of that. And he's like, exactly. So it's like, not taking no for an answer. And like, I really just want to make this, people telling him no, and they just made it anyway in a different medium. And then it got popular and they're like, okay, we'll make it. And he still ended up, finishing the manga over the years. But like, then once that was out there and I remember hearing the process of like, cause he kind of worked on other people's movies back then. And he was like, this is my chance to create something that is me. And I'm going to like, burn up my soul to do this, or else, if this does bad, then I'm dead. It's over, my career's over. And so he just did everything he could and it turned out great. And that kind of started his career in this new, making his own films. And thank God it happened because, we would have never gotten all these amazing stories he has been telling.
In terms of making the movie now, or like, what is an NFT movie? Like, is it any different from a normal movie? What is the key difference like that would define it or separate it apart from like, say, having Huxley made in the traditional route of maybe, settings, hooking up with a studio perhaps, and
I wouldn't say it's anything different. Yeah, like, so I don't see this as like an NFT project. I was making this long before. This is just a cool IP that I chose to release in this way, but I don't see it any different than like any other IP. Like if Star Wars was made now, I think Star Wars would be releasing it this way.
Got it. Yeah.
So for me, it's just, this is a great IP that I created over a decade and it's just being released in this way. Movie's going to be made exactly the way a movie's been made forever. There's nothing different.
So what is like, I guess, what is the NFT aspect of it? Is that just in terms of how people would have access to it, or is that just more so it's being made outside of the studio system? Is that more so what it is?
It's not being made outside of the studio, just exactly how a movie's been made forever. And again, just think of it like this is just an IP that's getting made. Just, there's nothing different.
And just before we wrap up, what more can, I guess, we expect from a Huxley, and even anything else from yourself? Like, are there any other things that you have in the pipeline, or is everything currently just all Huxley right now?
I'm still trying to go back and expand the earlier evolution project that I did. So I'm still finding a way to like build that up as well. So like just having these two projects probably will be where the next few years of my life will be consumed with. And yeah, it's going to be a very busy couple of years working on all this stuff.
And final words, I guess, to the listeners who are, I mean, like one thing that a lot of artists talk about a lot is like, but we just mentioned today, like about working for clients, but then there's always that thing of making our own thing or developing something further. So what would you say to those people who are currently in that process, who are initially, like how Huxley was, work sketches in between client projects, who are at that stage right now or in that place, or maybe even further along? What would you say, advise to those people right now?
I would say don't give up and keep going. And if you really believe in this, keep working on it and finish it. I think I was about halfway through Huxley and I was getting like anxiety of just like, this is taking too long, and like getting worried that like maybe I should release half of it now, like half a book. And I talked to a lot of graphic novel friends who were just like, no, you finish it, and then release it. And had I not listened to them and released something, I probably would have had the rights and royalties and everything locked up from a publisher. And I never would have been able to release it as an NFT in the way I have now, because I still retain and own everything, because I didn't get involved in anything when it was halfway incomplete. So I think finishing and completing the thing was one of the best decisions and advice I got. And I'm glad I listened to those people back then, because otherwise maybe I wouldn't even be able to do half or like 90% of the things I'm doing now because I tried to do something too early,
Well said. And throughout this episode or this conversation, so much wisdom, Ben. I appreciate you for doing this, and I'm glad that Huxley's where it's at right now, and I'm glad also for the energy that you put into it, because I had a hunch that it was like from a pure place. You've qualified that it was from a pure place, and I'm grateful to see how many people it's going to influence. So firstly, thank you for that, and thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a fun Sunday morning chatting about art and life, and thanks for having me.
A huge thanks to Ben for an amazing chat, and I'm sure you'll be just as inspired to develop your own craft further after listening as I am. Hit the links to check out Ben's work, including Huxley, and just to see what he's up to. Then, once you've done that, head on over to learnsquared.com and start your own creative journey. And there's no time like the present, as all of our first lessons are free. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.